What if someone you trusted?
What if someone you trusted
Tried to kill you?
tried to kill you, killed you?
Two women, two kitchens, two meals of murder. 70 years apart, but hauntingly alike. Caroline Grills and Erin Patterson didn't lash out with knives, they cooked. In quiet corners of Australia, food became fatal. What drives a woman to serve death with dessert? Welcome to our third and final episode of Poisonous Plates. In this episode, Poisonous Parallels, Women, Motive and Method, we peer into the psyche of femme fatales who use food fatally. Setting the table, Caroline versus Erin. Let's lay their stories side by side. A forensic dinner plate of deceit. Caroline Grills and Erin Patterson are two of Australia's most notorious female poisoners, separated by nearly 70 years but eerily linked by domestic settings, calculated deception and the quiet horror of food turned fatal. Caroline targeted family she called close. Erin invited hers to lunch. Both claimed innocence, both served poison, both shattered trust in kitchens made for comfort. Let's have a look at their similarities. Both used food served in intimate, familial environments, tea and cakes for Caroline, and home-cooked lunch for Erin. Each woman occupied a caregiving role or host, weaponizing trust through hospitality. Both women used food as symbol of care to kill. Victims were close relatives or in-laws, suggesting personal grievances or tensions. Both poisons caused slow onset symptoms, allowing initial confusion and delayed detection. Calculated distance. Poison allowed them to avoid direct confrontation. And no remorse displayed. Each maintained innocence despite mounting evidence with erratic or performative behaviour post-crime. Let's look at their differences. The time frame. Caroline operated in the shadows of post-war suburbia, 1940s to 1950s. Erin's alleged crimes unfolded in the digital glare of 2022 to 2023. Poison of choice. Caroline used thallium, rat poison, tasteless, slow and cruel. Erin served death cap mushrooms, amatoxins, lethal and organic. Method of delivery. Caroline offered tea paired with cakes and biscuits, ritualised genteel. Erin plated beef Wellington, home-cooked, hearty, fatal. The victim count. Caroline killed multiple over time, death dispersed, cumulative. Erin allegedly killed 3 in a single meal, swift, concentrated. Alleged motives. Caroline stood to inherit. She liked control and had simmering resentment. One of their sons, Harold Wally Grills, was a 28-year-old lifesaver at Maroubra who contracted typhoid fever after bringing the rotting body of a surfer ashore in December 1942. He died 10 weeks later. Caroline talked Richard out of suing the council. Could this be what tipped her, made her snap? Erin had family conflict, possible revenge, still under scrutiny. Legal outcomes. Caroline was convicted and sentenced to life. Erin has been charged with murder, awaiting trial, likely to face life imprisonment. The housewife's epidemic. She stirs the tea, she sets the table, she smiles. Society taught her to soothe, to serve, to soften the edges of life. But what happens when the casserole kills? When comfort curdles into cruelty? Poison is the housewife's weapon. No blood, no screams, just silence. It waits, it whispers, it masquerades as mercy. Caroline poured thallium with a grandmother's grace. Erin plated death-cap mushrooms beneath a golden crust. No knives, no guns, just expectation, raised, then shattered. Sydney, mid-century, the thallium panic, 10 dead, 36 hospitalised. Sociologists whisper the toll may have reached 50. Most of the accused were women cornered in loveless homes, reaching for a poison that vanished without trace. Yvonne Gladys Fletcher left her husband's body in plain sight. Veronica Monti was acquitted, but suspicion lingered like perfume. And Caroline Grill's Aunt Thally became the icon of post-war domestic horror. Quick forensic roll call. Caroline Grill's killed with thallium multiple family members from the 1940s to 50s. Legacy, matriarch of suburban dread. Yvonne Gladys Fletcher also used thallium, killed 2 husbands, confident and unrepentant. Erin Patterson, death cap mushrooms, 3 relatives from 2022 to 23, awaiting sentencing. Australia's top 3 poisoners, but they weren't alone. Let's open the pantry of history and see who else seasoned their marriages with murder. The husband killers. Martha Needle used arsenic to kill her husband, children and brother-in-law in 1890s. The insurance was the motive. Her legacy as serial poisoner. Louisa Collins, who we've done an episode on ourselves, also used arsenic to kill 2 husbands and possibly a child. This was in the 1880s and she was hanged after 4 trials, a grim first for New South Wales. Arsenic was also used by Mary Elizabeth Fry, who killed her husband in 1882. She claimed abuse and earned public sympathy. Her death sentence was commuted. Divorce was rare, escape rarer. In 1873, Elizabeth Woolcock was executed for poisoning her husband with mercury, but later on was viewed as possibly innocent. In 1981, after a 3rd husband was suspected of being poisoned, Emily Perry was suspected to have used arsenic on her first husband too. In the 1960s, it was alleged that Emily's first husband, a constable, died from arsenic poisoning, as well as her brother, and a de facto partner a couple of years later. Her 3rd husband, Kenneth, stated that even though he had been poisoned by arsenic, it wasn't his wife. It was restoring musical instruments. A year later, the charges were dropped, stating that previous poisonings could have been explained away, not necessarily by murder. For some women, murder wasn't the first choice, it was the only one. But what if the victim wasn't a husband? What if it was a child? These are the cases we bury, the ones we whisper about, but silence is complicity. The child killers. Frances Lydia Alice Knorr, born Minnie Thwaites, was one of Australia's most infamous baby farmers, a figure whose life and crimes exposed the brutal underside of maternal desperation and institutional neglect in 1890s Melbourne. Born in London in 1868, she migrated to Sydney in 1887, working first as a domestic servant. She married a Rudolf Knorr, a German immigrant and swindler. Their life was unstable. He was jailed. She was left to support herself and her child. Moving to Melbourne during the economic depression, she began taking in unwanted or illegitimate infants for a fee. This practice was known as baby farming. It was common among poor women, but it had a dark underside. Some babies were neglected, others quietly disposed of. Frances Knorr was one of those who killed the babies. When a new tenant at one of her former residences began gardening, they unearthed the body of a baby girl. Police investigations led to the discovery of more infants' corpses, buried in yards of homes Frances had rented. She was arrested in Sydney in 1893, shortly after giving birth to her second child. The trial painted her as both a ruthless profiteer and a desperate woman caught in a brutal system. She was convicted of murder and executed by hanging at Old Melbourne Jail in January of 1894, aged just 25. Martha Rendell, the housekeeper for the Morris family, from 1907 to 1908, killed 3 of the Morris children, disguising her poison, hydrochloric acid, as throat medicine. Another woman executed by hanging, Martha Rendell, born 1871, died 1909. Rendell moved in with Thomas Morris in Perth, posing as his wife after he separated from his actual spouse. Morris had custody of his children, and Rendell was left to care for them. Over the course of 2 years, 3 of the children, Annie, Olive and Arthur, died under suspicious circumstances. Her method was disturbingly calculated. She would swab the children's throats with spirits of salt, or hydrochloric acid, claiming it was medicine. The acid caused severe inflammation, making it painful to eat, and ultimately led to the starvation and death. Doctors initially attributed the deaths to diphtheria, but suspicion grew when the youngest son, George, escaped and told authorities what had happened. Rendell was convicted of willful murder and became the last woman to be hanged in Western Australia. Her case shocked the public and remains one of the most haunting examples of domestic homicide in Australian history. Across centuries, these women poisoned for profit, for revenge, for release. Their kitchens became crypts, their lullabies lethal. Forensics then and now, the science of betrayal. Before the lab, there was the body, twitching, vomiting, hair falling like autumn leaves. In the 1800s, poison spoke through symptoms. Its language was pain, not proof. Arsenic and strychnine were the housewife's allies, cheap, silent, undetectable. Louisa Collins brewed it 4 times before the gallows claimed her. Martha Needle stirred it into kin for coin. Then came thallium. The 1950s shimmered with tea and death. Aunt Thally served cakes laced with decay. Her conviction cracked open the grave. Bodies exhumed, teacups tested and science stirred. Flame tests, colour reactions, primitive rituals in sterile rooms. The lab was born, but it still blinked in the dark. By the 1970s, the discipline had a name: forensic toxicology. Chromatography whispered secrets from blood. Mass spectrometry sang of poisons in urine. The state took notice. Queensland, New South Wales, the science grew teeth. No longer just murder. Now drugged drinks, impaired drivers, workplace betrayals. The poisoner's reach expanded, and so did the lab's gaze. Today the tools are sharper: high resolution, mass spectrometry, DNA sequencing, hair analysis that reads time like tree rings. Erin Patterson's beef Wellington in 2023, death cap mushrooms, amatoxins traced from plate to gut. The science didn't blink, it remembered. But beneath the data, the myth remains. Poisoning is still betrayal, wrapped in ritual, murder masked as nurture, a casserole, a cup of tea, a kiss goodnight. From witches to white coats, Australia's forensic labs now operate under national standards. They collaborate across borders. They chase ghosts with graphs. And still, the question lingers. When care becomes lethal, who will read the residue? The psychology of poison, murder in the mask of care. Poison is the weapon of quiet power. No confrontation, no blood, just control, served with a smile. It's chosen not out of weakness, but calculation, a method that turns nourishment into death, love into leverage. Both women wore the mask of normalcy, one doting, one conflicted. Neither screamed, Neither confessed, but both shattered the myth that murder must look monstrous. Sensationalism and the story we tell, the killer in the apron. 2 women, 2 kitchens, 2 headlines. Caroline became Aunt Sally, sepia-toned and sinister. Erin, the mushroom murderess, viral, dissected, memed into infamy. Why does it grip us so tightly? Because the apron is supposed to protect, not poison. The apron as alibi. Domesticity is sacred baking, nursing, hosting. When death is served in that space, it ruptures belief. Poisoning is especially cruel, death disguised as care. The myth of the nurturer. Society sees women as caregivers, not killers. Caroline Grills and Martha Needle shattered that illusion. The apron becomes a costume, soft, fabric hiding sharp intent. Violence in the sacred kitchen. Kitchens hold memory, tradition, trust. A killer in that space desecrates more than flesh. They violate ritual. Poisoning feels mythic, slow, intimate, treacherous. The sanitized killer. Pop culture prefers monsters with masks, but these women wore smiles, stirred soup, set tables. That's the true horror. Violence in plain sight, dressed in care. Caroline poured tea like tradition. Erin plated mushrooms like ritual. The betrayal was silent, but unforgettable. If you enjoyed this series, give us a like, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any more great Aussie stories we have. And make sure you trust who's plating up your next meal. Oh, and thank you to our 3,000 subscribers. We really appreciate you giving us a chance to put our stuff out there. Thank you for subscribing, and we hope you enjoy all of our videos to come. Also, we purchased 2 puppies, so that's why our scheduling has become a little crazy over the last week. Hopefully, we'll sleep through the night very soon. The puppies and us. Thanks, guys.